Hello YouTube, hey, it's Sean again. I wanted to make a video today a little different than some of the videos I do, but I want to talk about the importance of good diagnostics and using a good shop. If you don't know for sure your shop's good around you, get referrals, ask around. It makes a huge difference. So this truck, this belongs to a customer of mine. A year ago he put a transmission in it. He sent it to a local transmission shop. I didn't have a lot of time. He needed it done. It's for his work. I'm just a one-man show. So I didn't have a problem with that, but he took it to a local transmission shop. They charged him $5,000 to rebuild his transmission and make it bulletproof. A year later, he got a bunch of codes. He got codes for shift circuit A, shift solenoid circuit B, the solenoid circuits, both of them. Shift A, shift B solenoid circuits, torque converter clutch solenoid, and coast clutch solenoid circuits. He had all four of those codes. So the transmission shop said, well, we did a continuity test on all of your wiring. All the wiring's good, so we think it's in the PCM. So we sent the PCM to a place in Dallas that I use. They do really good work. He sent it there. They didn't find a problem. It cost him $400. So we went back to the transmission shop, and they said, well, if it's not in the computer and we checked the wiring, then it's got to be in the valve body. So he called me, said, what do you think? I said, well, if they really did check the continuity, probably is the valve body. That's really the only thing left. These valve bodies tend to fail occasionally. So they said, well, we're not sure, so if we put one in and it doesn't work, you have to pay for it. So he said, okay, go ahead. So he paid for it. They put the valve body in, and he got all the same codes back. So what was the problem? I'm going to tell you. Stay tuned and I'll show you what I found. Okay, so what I did is I figured if they were all circuit codes, they probably had a problem in the wiring, and I was never really convinced that they did a continuity test anyway. So the first thing I did, I crawled underneath the truck, I unplugged the transmission plug. It comes from the fuse box to the transmission and then back to the powertrain control module. So there's a red and a yellow wire down there that should have a 12-volt reference. It comes right out of the fuse box. He had no power to that wire. That's why he was throwing those codes. It wouldn't have mattered how many valve bodies they put in, how many different computers they tried to fix. There was no power to the transmission. So what I did was, I'm going to take the camera from my camera holder here, and I'll show you what I did. So up here, right here, I'm in the truck. This is the wiring harness that comes out of the truck cab and goes down to the transmission. So I unplugged it, and it took me a bit to get it unplugged because they never had that thing unplugged. The problem is they didn't check the continuity like they said they did. So I unplugged this plug, and I got out my power probe, and I tested the continuity of all these wires. And guess what? They were right. It did have continuity, but it still didn't have any power. So the next thing I did, I took my power probe, and on that same circuit, I tested on the red and yellow wire. I tested to make sure I was getting power with the key on. And with the key on, there was still no power. So then I knew from this point I had a problem between the fuse box and this connection. Now the thing is, I had already checked the fuse, so I knew it wasn't a fuse issue. I knew at this point that there was probably a break in the wire. So the next thing I did is I checked the continuity on that power wire from the fuse box to here, and I found that it had an open short. So after that, I pulled the fuse box out. I'm not going to pull it back out and show you. There's 4 bolts if you need to do it. It's pretty simple. I'll show you the fuse box in a minute. I'll show you the 4 bolts you take out and you can just pull it down. So then I checked the continuity from the fuse to where it comes out of the back of the fuse box. Guess what? No continuity. So at that point I knew I had a bad fuse box. So what I did, he didn't want to spend a lot more money. He'd already spent $800–900. I don't remember exactly, but it was a lot. It was between $800 and $900. So I cut the wire and I checked the continuity from there to the plug, and it was good. So I knew my problem was inside the fuse box. So what I did to fix it to save him some money is I just added a fuse and ran a wire outside to that wire that sends power down to the transmission, and bam, all of his codes went away. Let me show you what I did. Okay, here we are inside the truck. Here's the fuse box. The fuse actually for the transmission is this one here. Okay, but what I did is I needed to find keyed power. He didn't want me to pull the fuse box out, tear it apart, fix it. We probably could have done that, but he was so sick of spending money. And where it's a 12-volt reference and it goes right to the transmission and not through the PCM, I just added a fuse. That's all I did. So I went over to this fuse. This is key on power. And I added this thing. You can buy these at O'Reilly, AutoZone, Napa, anywhere they sell parts. It's an add-a fuse. So the 10 amp fuse is the original fuse that was in the box. This fuse is the one I added. I'm colorblind, but I think that's a 25 amp. I can't really read it. But I added this fuse, and this is the power that comes out of that fuse, this wire. I just ran it up behind the box to the fuse that I had cut, the wire that I had cut, and I spliced it in. That's what I did. That's where he got power. Now it goes right down to his transmission, and it does what it's supposed to do. I took his box, had to modify the lid a little bit. I cut a notch out there to make room for this fuse, and I notched out the top so the wire could go through. And the reason I notched it out that big is because this wire, if anybody ever takes this off, it's going to move around a bit. See? And so I just wanted that to have room to wiggle. Anyway, that's all I did. Took me about an hour and a half after he'd spent $800 or $900, and he's back on the road. Thanks for watching. My point of this video is please make sure that you have a good shop. There are some shops out there that just really don't want to dig in and do the diagnostics, particularly on electrical. Sometimes it's tough, so they want to take the shortcut and guess and throw parts at it. If you have any question that that's happening to you, get a second opinion. Get a referral from a friend, whatever. Don't waste $800. Thanks for coming along. I hope this is a good tip for you guys, and hopefully it will get you back on the road if you have the same problem.